So if you're like me, you're sitting in front of the TV and you are just waiting for more details on the Delphi murders. A lot of you wanted to discuss this, and I love it. We're going to talk about what we know, what we suppose, and what we can definitely take away right now. First, I want to respond to some of your comments. I mean, I know I didn't expect everything to be, sunshine and roses. Everybody has an opinion. It can get heated. We can agree to disagree. It doesn't matter. But here are some of the comments that I wanted to specifically talk about. I had to get my glasses for this. Okay, in my last video, I talked about Richard Allen's wife, Kathy. Did she know? And you all had some really good takes on this. Steve says, I'm guessing his wife was going to say something until she saw Ron Logan's interview. And so we had a little bit of discussion about that. And, yeah, if you look at Ron Logan's first interview, he was dressed to a T like Bridge Guy. I mean, I would have, just based on that alone, I would have said, oh, that's your man. But when you listen to the voice, I'm out there. The voices are totally different. So, no, he's not Bridge Guy. However, I know he's passed on, and people really aren't talking about this because of that. But, there are just some things that are in his past that still make him very shady. One being his ex-girlfriend talking about, his violence towards women. The fact that he told her, according to her, this is hearsay, that he could kill her and nobody would ever know. They were found on his property. His alibi for the day before was kind of crap. Let's just be honest. He wanted to establish that before anybody even knew what was going on. So, I think he's real shady. I personally have not ruled out he could have somehow been involved in this. And we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. But back to, did Kathy Allen know? Dave says, of course his wife knew it was him. She probably told him, that's you. He likely said, yes, it's me. I hike there all the time. I think that's when he went to the police to convince them that he was there but didn't do the crime. Since he talked to the police and nothing happened, his wife likely thought no reason for her to go to the police since he already did. I don't blame his wife. She and his daughter are victims in this pool of tragedy too. Prayers for those impacted. Yeah. Let's just say I can totally see that. You're seeing Bridge Guy like everybody else is, and then you think, oh man, that looks just like my husband. But then you look at the Ron Logan interview, that's one thing. And then Ricky says, I already went to the police. I told them I was there. I go hiking there all the time. So yeah, why would she think she needed to turn him in? Maybe that was her safeguard, mentally, whatever. And just, you've already been to the police, so what else are you going to do? He already said he was there, and they're not investigating him. Which I have to wonder if that is true. Like, how long was Richard Allen on their radar? But he kept such a low profile, we don't know. Maybe it was just the police going back and saying, let's just re-interview or take a look at these first few people. Let's start from the beginning. That's what they say it is, and possibly that's true. However, they're not going to tell you everything they know. They could have had him on their radar for a couple of years, and he just wasn't doing anything. Like, you can't connect the dots, even if you really think you know who Bridge Guy was. So, I don't know. But I think we can't discount it completely, because in a town that small, there's only several hundred men that could possibly fit this description, and he was one of them. So I think they probably were looking at everybody. And I think maybe that's even why they said the police said in interviews, talking about if you are listening, if you are here in this room, I really loved this comment. I don't know if this is what the police were doing, but this is something I did not think about, okay? I also think the police submitted 2 sketches because the first one is from the Delphi Murders. In my opinion, the second sketch is a younger version of him because they suspect he's involved in earlier crimes. Someone may recognize the younger version of him. In my opinion, I think the police clearly suspect this isn't his first major crime. It's very rare for a 50-year-old to do this type of crime for the first time at that age. I totally agree. I often wondered why the big age difference between the 2 sketches. And I think you may be onto something here because, and I said this last video, I think. I was thinking it if I didn't say it. I do not believe that Richard Allen is Snowy White up until this happened with Abby and Libby. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit any kind of profile. Now, I would be personally surprised if this is his first major crime. If it is, my suspicion is that he thought there was only going to be one girl. If he was using a fake account, I can't talk today. He may have gone up to the bridge thinking it was just one girl. And then, surprise, he gets there and there's 2. So now it's going to be harder to navigate. If this was his first major crime, then I think it was a panic situation. Okay? I can't deal with these girls. I can't control 2 of them. So, maybe things just got out of hand quickly. However, looking at him and the typical profile, I really would not be surprised at how deep down the rabbit hole we're going to go on this one because there was, I don't know that there's any connection between the Evansville murders, but it's very similar. And at that time, Richard Allen was only working an hour away. Now, he has the history of, allegedly having to change jobs because of harassing women. So, this kind of sets up a pattern. And that would also kind of connect him to Kagan Klein. And let me tell you why. First of all, let's go to his murder charge. I think you all have probably seen this by now. But here is, let me find it. Okay. It says murder 1, parentheses 2, means the murder took place during an illegal act like, I can't say that word, we'll just say other issues. My guess is that it will be upgraded when they understand the motive and intent. Right now, they may just have 2 murder victims, evidence of an illegal act, and proof the person in custody is the killer. They likely still need evidence to prove intent. That said, like everyone else, we're all filling in the blanks. Yes, they would have to prove intent. But what they're saying is this wasn't just a, you get mad at somebody or whatever and you kill them, straight out murder. This is murder 1, 2 is while you're doing something else, whether it was, I don't know what I can say here, whether it was trafficking or whatever. It was part of another thing. So that tells me this. Richard Allen is not alone, okay? You cannot be performing an illegal act, especially something that is going to be bigger like that. It most likely is going to involve more than one person, okay? I just don't see it being an act, if it was just him and maybe murder was not the intent, it was an accident, it would, I don't know. I think it's too murky. I think, and let me tell you why. Back to Kegan Kline, with his charges, even though he has not been directly charged in Delphi yet, they have said over and over that his charges are, this is part of one of the biggest CP rings in the whole state. Okay? So you have Kegan over here running the CP. He's involved with all kind of people. At the very least, Richard Allen, because of the age of these kids, if this had been an adult woman, yes, he may not even be involved, Kegan Kline. But because these are children, you don't start by just following kids one day by accident and saying, oh, I think I'm going to do this. No. For Richard Allen, if his part in it was of a sexual nature, he would have to have previously indulged in a lot of CP. Okay, you don't just wake up one day and this is who you are. There's got to be. So if he is indulging in CP for months, years, decades, we don't know, and Kegan Kline is part of this huge ring, it is very easy to see a connection there. So that's just my thought. I mean, we'll find out eventually if there are more people involved. But remember, the police have not ruled that out, and they said that. So I just think they don't want us, they're not ready to release all that information yet of how it all ties together. So, okay, Carol says, I find it odd that many of the people who've spoken during this tragedy appear so nonchalant, almost like they're relating their trip to the local market. Have we become that desensitized as a society? Yeah, I think we have. I mean, and shame on us for that being the case. I think, we're flooded with so many images and so much stuff, media, internet. I think we have been. And I think that was the point of my last video, is let's not just look at this as, a crime. Horrible as it is, these are people. These are families. And that's kind of going to go into the next thing, what we can take away from this. I'm going to do one more comment. This is from Audrey. In response to my video, no, we are not guilty too. We do not drop our kids off at public parks or trails. We do not take our kids to dangerous bridges. Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I do agree for the most part. Here's where you get into the dynamics of the place they were. I live in a small town, but my small town still is like 25,000 people, I think. I don't know what the latest census is. We've grown a whole lot in the last 10 years, but I still consider it a small town. Delphi is 3,000. Like, it's microscopic, okay? That is a tiny town. But even in my town, I can tell you there are things that your mentality is different, okay? When you live in a city, and the bigger the place, you are already aware of all the dangers. But people in small towns, they don't necessarily think the same, okay? Especially if they've been there for generations. It's like my granddaddy used to go up on that bridge. He quartered my grandma up there. My dad used to shoot squirrels from that bridge. I don't know. It's just, when this has been a place that people go for many years and a landmark, yes, as an outsider, I can look at that bridge and say, oh, holy crap, I would never let my daughter up there. Not because I expect somebody to, do something to her, but it looks dangerous to me. But again, this is not the thinking of people in these towns. First of all, you have the big area of familiarity, okay? You know everybody. It's like that in my town. If we don't know everybody, we know their family, who you kin to. And I kid you not, when you go to a job interview in my area, they look at your last name, and if they don't know you, and they probably don't, they're going to ask, oh, you know, your name is Jane Doe? Oh, are you related to the Does that live over there on Pea Ridge? Well, you know, that's the way we live. So everybody tries to make connections. And with that, you have a familiarity. Oh, I know those Does. They're no good. Or those Does from Pea Ridge, they are the greatest people. Look, we don't take people individually. We take the whole family. And when you're in a small town, you are so familiar with the people that you see every day and the families, who they're married to, who their kids are. Like, you have to think of that in the context. It's just like all the videos I do on past crimes. It's like you have to take the culture into consideration, because you can't understand where these people are coming from unless you've been there. And I would guess that 99% of us have never lived in a town as tiny as Delphi. So, you know, you can't always make a judgment on what you would do unless you were in that situation. You know, you see what I'm saying? And there is such a trust amongst the people there. I mean, if you look for years, people in the area were convinced that it was somebody just coming down the highway. It was just one of those things. Some crazy person was driving down there. They saw the girls. They committed this murder. It was not one of our own. And I think when they started to look and wonder, is it one of our own? Most people wanted to shove that away, because you don't want that thought in your head. You want to believe that you're living in Mayberry, you know? You want to think that the worst thing that's going to happen is Otis gets drunk on Saturday night, okay? That is small town mentality. And even though my city, my town, is much bigger, and we have a lot of, it's not good. It's not necessarily a safe place, but it's not that unsafe either. You know, we're changing. But even in that, I think that we still try to believe the best. I mean, I see a lot of parents letting their kids do things that I don't feel comfortable with. But you see what I do? I study crimes. I think everybody's a criminal. Okay? I think that's part of it. And for that reason, I feel like there are so many dynamics that we don't know about. There's got to be a lot of accusations and the whole 9 yards. So what do we take away? Well, you know, for Delphi, their trust will be forever broken. I think all of us are going to look around and think, maybe I shouldn't let my daughter do that. Or, you know, I think there's a certain mistrust in all of us. And knowing that you don't really know your neighbor. And I remember when my kids were little, and, you know, like I said, I'm a little hyper vigilant about this, but I would get on the computer and I would look up in my area all the convicted pedophiles and where they lived. Like, there's a website for that. So I would look in a 1 mile radius when the kids were like, and we lived in the city, but it wasn't a city. It was the town. It was a small end of the town, okay? But still, there were a lot of houses around, and they would want to ride their bikes down the street, and I'd be like, no, there's too many houses, there's too much, and they didn't understand, like, there's too many cars, there's too much potential for something to happen. And I would get online and I would look at the pedophiles in my area, and I would bring them over to the computer and say, hey, look, you see, this is like 6 blocks from us. Do you see there's a pedophile here living at this address? This is why you don't go out. And yeah, they just thought I was nuts until the day I was looking on the convicted registry in my county, and lo and behold, there's somebody that we know, that we see every single week, that my kids are involved with every single week. Not like spending the night, but still, I see this man's picture and I have a come apart. I call my kids in and I'm like, look, I want you to stare at this face. And they were shocked. Oh my God, this is a pedophile. Yeah, I didn't know. So, you never know. And that has got to be shocking to Delphi, but it needs to be a wake-up call, I think, for all of us. You don't know your neighbor. You don't know what goes on in the dark recesses of somebody's head. And I still will say this. I believe that while we are vigilant, and we probably need to be more so than ever, that we still have to remember that these are all people. The family involved, the decisions that were made of, yes, you can go to the bridge, no, you can't. All these things. Imagine what is going through people's heads. So I think that what we're going to take away is, I think there are more people involved. This is just my opinion. I do think there are more people involved. I think that Richard Allen has had a problem of some sort for maybe all of his life. And this will come out. I really hope that they unseal some of the documents, because there's just so much speculation. I think it's hard on the family and hard on everybody the more we speculate. So anyway, tell me what you think. Be nice. But basically, I just wanted to remind you that none of us probably have lived in that situation, in a town of that size, in a community that you think you know. It is horrifying to imagine that people are not what you think. So those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think. And I want to know this. Do you think that they should unseal the probable cause? Like, what led them to this arrest? I actually think they should, I think. Unless it really compromises the case, okay? Certainly we don't want that. But yeah, let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you later.